Good evening and a very warm welcome, our fellow travelers, on this wonderful path of learning with Geshe Lhakdor. This is the fifth session. Time has just sort of flown by. Thank you very much, Geshe Lhakdor, for giving us time yet again, week after week. It's a wonderful learning experience. And we spend the week ruminating on all that you have told us and waiting for the next round of wisdom. Before I hand over to Geshe Lhakdor, just an announcement that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has very kindly agreed to give a talk, as you can see on your screen, on India's heritage of Karuna and compassion and Ahimsa, that's non-violence. On Monday, as this poster tells you, at 9 o'clock for about an hour and a half, depending on how it goes. We're also very privileged to have a number of friends of His Holiness who will interact with him. Aruna Roy, Fali Nariman, Mr. Gopal Gandhi, Enenvora, Prakash Amte, Baba Amte's son. His Holiness had a very special relationship with Baba Amte, who was also one of our founding trustees. Shiv Shankar Menon, whose father received His Holiness when he crossed over to India in 1959, Sham Saran Foreign Secretary, and Said Hamid, who's a wonderful activist and a literary figure. So just to flag this, and we will flash this again, and you can watch it. I think the best thing is to watch it on His Holiness's website, but we will also be carrying it on our Facebook. And please log in, and perhaps we will request Lhakdor the following week on Friday to pick up on what His Holiness has said and do at least a brief review of what he will have so eloquently taught us. So it's for the rest of the evening, it's over to Geshe Lhakdor, and I have reappeared on the screen after promising that my colleague Norzin will now lead the show. She chickened out this evening, but it's Geshe Lhakdor and then over to Norzin.
Okay. Geshe. So far we have finished chapter 4, and we'll finish chapter 5 today, which is on restraining the senses, which I just touched and left the last time, because this is a particularly relevant topic for today's world. And the verses, the lines I've already read. With mindfulness, introspection, and care, always guard the doors of the senses. Repeatedly examine your mind 3 times a day and 3 times a night. So this teaching comes in the context that when Atisha and Domtomba were living in Nithang, and then Domtomba expressed his great joy by saying that, as has been foretold by deities and lamas, this old Upasaka got this wonderful privilege of getting the darshan, or able to see you and able to receive all these wonderful teachings from you. And therefore, I would once again request you to give teachings, which is so important in the course of our life, especially during the time of degeneration. So then to this, Atisha said, yes, I have the way and the means to practice during this time. If you want to sincerely practice Dharma, then you need to give up much of the craving and grasping to this life, and talking too much and making a lot of promises will not help you. So this is probably referring to me talking too much and making a lot of promises is of not much meaning. So you should isolate yourself, which is perfect time during this time of, isolation, social distancing. Again, this is actually what the great teachers have been saying for a long time, not just during the pandemic, even otherwise. You are fragile. You can easily be contaminated and polluted by the polluted environment, including the pollution from the people's negative ways of thinking, negative ways of living. So therefore you should, if possible, move into the forest or place of solitude, and then undertake your practice and make repeated supplication to the lamas and personal deities, and read the three Pitakas, and give up these evil forces which comes in the form of sleep, torpor, laziness. He calls these as the evil forces which interrupts your spiritual practices. And so with great effort, as we read earlier, with great effort, you should imagine the coming of or visiting of the lamas and the deities. And to them, you should then undertake the practice of making the seven limb practices, seven branch practices, as we say, which is paying homage, which is very important, because paying homage, of course, has many, many benefits, but one very important benefit is you are able to cultivate humility, and through that way you're able to make yourself receptive to the teachings of the Buddha. Ordinarily, even if we don't have much merit, much accumulation of virtuous practices, still we might have this arrogance, thinking that I know everything or I'm okay, things like that. So you are not okay, definitely you are not okay. So therefore it is important to reduce your arrogance and pay homage to the sublime masters and the personal deities. So that is paying homage. And then making offerings of all kinds, and including offering your body, or offering yourself, in the sense that you make a commitment that I will do nothing but serving the wishes of the Lama, or which means basically serving sentient beings who are in need. And then, of course, you can make all kind of material offerings, but of all the offerings, the most important offering is offering of practice. If you practice what needs to be practiced, that is the most important offering, not just offering money or offering other things. Ordinarily, of course, if we make some offerings of gold and silver to the Lama, then we might think that I made a lot of offering. And then the Lama also, if it is not of a standard one, then he might get highly pleased. But if you say, I have been practicing this and that, then in the case of a Lama who is of not great standard, he might not show much interest. But if that Lama is genuinely concerned about well-being of his students and other sentient beings, then if you tell him that this is what I have been practicing, he will be highly highly pleased. So therefore, there are many types of offering, but most important offering is offering of practice. And the third is confession. Intentionally or unintentionally, we tend to commit a lot of wrong things. We commit a lot of negatives. So therefore, it is important to see the negative deeds as negative and confess it wholeheartedly. In the Tibetan word for confession is shakwa, which basically means splitting. Just like if you chop a piece of wood and then you split it into two halves, then you will be able to see what is the reality in the core of that piece of wood. So like that, without hiding anything, you just open up, say, this is the mistake that I made, I'm sorry. So that is the most important step for both mundane development and also spiritual practice. And then rejoicing. That means ordinarily, if somebody is very rich, we might rejoice. Wow, he's so rich, so good, If somebody is a celebrity, a Hollywood or Bollywood actor, actress, we might also run after them thinking this is a wonderful achievement. And if I'm able to just get their signature, it will make my life, we think like that. But in the Buddhist teaching, these are not worthy of rejoicing. Rejoicing means really the good things that you've done to benefit the Dharma and to benefit sentient beings. If somebody is doing that, then you should say, wonderful, I will support you. How can I help you? How can I support you? Instead of developing jealousy. Unfortunately, again, it is a human kind of tendency. When we see others doing good, we might get again jealous. And instead of appreciating that, we might say, okay, he's doing this, but there are many other bad things that he's doing. So we are more interested in highlighting the bad things done by others rather than the good things done by others. So therefore, especially in the society, it is really, really important to, support, the good people doing good things. Good people must support each other, and good people must shine out in the society. I remember very clearly what Martin Luther King said. He said, I don't feel so sad when I see bad people doing bad things, but I feel sad when I see good people not doing enough or not coming out. I think this is very, very true. So therefore it is important to join hands, to come together, to put the voice together of the good people and make it kind of manifest or make it known to the rest of the world. So that will give the hope that yes, there are so many good things happening. People will be happy, you see. But if you don't collaborate, and you may be trying to do something in some part of the world, I may be doing something in some part of the world, but if we don't see others supporting us or rejoicing at our good deeds, then we are ordinary people. We are weaklings. We are not, highly spirited Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. So we might not get that needed, push or needed inspiration. So it is important to, the good people should join hand and make their voice known to the rest of the world to give hope and inspiration. So therefore, rejoicing at the good things done by others, and also rejoicing the good things done by yourself. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, and especially when you see some people who are kind of very, very ordinary, who don't know much about Dharma, who don't have much facilities, but still you see so many ordinary, very, very ordinary, even among poor people, so many ordinary poor people are in their daily life trying their best to do something good, to look after their family or to help others. In many times, sometimes you will see good things done more by this, so-called poor people or weaker people than the so-called rich people, you see. Because people who are poor, who are deprived of all the material facilities, then they have to rely on the actual reality of human nature. They need to, pull out their human resources. So which is why we are able to see many of these good things happening in the ordinary society. So to those good things done by poor people or weak people, we should especially, encourage them and rejoice at them. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do many good things. Yes, we should rejoice, but it's not so surprising because they've already reached such an elevated high level. But then at the very, very ordinary level, when you see them making attempt, even the dry, bread or whatever they have, they share that, हम लोग बोलते हैं ना हिंदी में रुका सुका, they share even the ruka suka or thanda pani, whatever, so that's really, really amazing. So that actually, this is amazing in the sense because this shows, as the Buddha has said, that we all have the capacity to become Buddha. So that there you see the really the glimmer of hope. So with that kind of knowledge, you will get encouraged. Yes, people are basically good. People are trying their best. So that is important. So in this way, you should undertake the practice of rejoicing. And sometimes when I read this word rejoicing, I also get the kind of image, of dancing and singing. I mean, really, this is a wonderful opportunity. When you have really done something that is worthy of a human being, that is the time to rejoice. Sing or dance, whatever. Yeah, I have done something really good. Not because you bought a fancy car. Ordinarily, unfortunately, when you bought a fancy car or got a piece of latest machine or equipment, you might rejoice and throw a party, you see. But we never see throwing party when somebody has done something good and things like that, you see. So it's important, especially for the spiritual practitioners. It is important to rejoice, to recognize the good things that you have done by yourself. As I said earlier, that we human beings have this tendency of always highlighting the things that we have not achieved. I'm not clever, I'm not intelligent, nobody is supporting me, I've achieved nothing, I've done nothing. You have this tendency of looking down upon yourself, ignoring yourself. But if you look carefully, you will find that you have done so many good things, whether it's just sharing something to other people or extending and helping hand. We all do so many good things. So you must recognize these good things. And once you recognize, these good things that you've done, then you get that happiness, then you get that inspiration. And when your mind is happy and full of inspiration, that will again uplift you and give you the capacity to do many other good things. So it is really, really important to rejoice at the good things that is done by yourself and done by others. And then requesting the great teachers to give the teaching. So that's why I've seen so many people requesting His Holiness to give the teaching, which is very, very important, because especially in the case of good teachers, they will not make fancy posters and make that, great announcement saying that, okay, I'm giving this great teaching, I'm so and so, I'm highly, highly intelligent, highly, highly experienced, I've been teaching for the last 30 years, and you might get enlightened in 1 week, and all those kind of tall promises, they make, but the good teachers don't make that, And in the case of the good teachers, they hide their knowledge within themselves. As in Buddhism, we say that they keep their knowledge within themselves, just like a butter lamp burning inside a pot, which is not visible outside, but inside it is full of light. So they're like that. So therefore it is important. Then also in the Buddhist teaching, it also says that if you are not requested, don't give teachings. Generally speaking, if you are not requested, don't give teachings. However, there are exceptions. But if you did encounter some people who are really like very humble and who are very, very interested in studying the Buddhism, but they don't have that courage to request somebody. If you see such people, then even if you are not requested, you can say, okay, I know you are very, very interested, so come please, I will help you, I'll teach you. So otherwise, you're not supposed to give their teaching without having requested. So that's the general tendency. Okay, but if you even again if you give a teaching, I mean, I would not say that is completely wrong, even if not requested, provided if you are not giving this teaching for name and for fame and for money, simply to share your knowledge and help others, I think then it is okay. But generally speaking, it is wonderful if you are giving teaching because you have been requested, not otherwise. And then requesting them to live long. That's why we know that we people make repeated requests to His Holiness and offer long life prayers. And once I was visiting Switzerland and giving some talks and teachings to Tibetans in Switzerland, and somebody asked me this question, that we make so many long life offerings to His Holiness. How does this work? How does this contribute to the longevity of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's life? So I answered by saying that there could be like many visible reasons and invisible reasons. One of the visible reasons that I can explain is, if you request His Holiness to live long, you're basically saying that your life is very important for us, your life is very precious for us, you're benefiting so many people, so very important for us. So with that request, the Lama also knows, oh, my life is meaningful, many people are getting benefit, so it is very important for me to live also, you see. So that way, that shows the very pure bond and relationship between the teacher and the student. So I explained this in the case of relationship among family members. If the family members have very close relationship, then they always want to, for example, if the husband goes to work and wife and the kids are waiting in the house, then as soon as the husband finishes his work, he will quickly rush to the home, thinking that my wife and my children are waiting, because there's such a pure bond, so much love. Contrarily, if the relationship is not so good, then the husband or wife may finish their office work at 5, but still they will like hang around and then come very late to the home. Then the one who is in the home might pick up a quarrel by saying, I know your office work finishes at 5. How come you came so late? And then the other will start telling lie, I made this friend, that friend, which may be true, which may not be true. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't then feel like, contacting that person, you see. But when there is genuine love, affection, and spiritual bond, then you develop this wish to live long naturally because of this pure love. That love itself makes your life happy, and that happiness itself prolongs your life. So that is one very ordinary way of explaining. But then in the case of highly spiritually realized master like His Holiness Dalai Lama, they can, with their own practice, as His Holiness is now, very, very clearly, publicly saying that I will live 113 years. I cannot say things like that, you see, because these are like now the special cases. So there are many other reasons for them to live long also. So our request also becomes one very important condition for the longevity of their life. Okay. And then the seventh branch practice is dedication. Every time we do some spiritual practice, maybe for 1 hour, or maybe 2 hours, or maybe 1 week, whatever kind of practices that you do, at the end of that practice, you should dedicate the virtue or the merit that is earned to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So if in the text it says, if you do that, then the result of the merit that the result of the good things that you've done will not be wasted. It will not be destroyed. It will not be lost. If you don't do that, then next moment, if you get angry, then the result of the good things that you've done earlier may be destroyed by that anger. So it is like really depositing your money in the bank. If you deposit your money in the bank, you may get, some countries give some interest, some countries may not give much interest, but still there is a possibility to get some interest. And additionally, I mean, this is not always true, but generally speaking, there is more security and safety. If you keep that money in under your bed, in your own room, it may be stolen away, it may be, lost in different ways. So therefore, for security and also for getting some interest, you deposit it. So it's really like depositing your money in the bank. So that's very, very important. Okay. So in this way, you should maintain mindfulness, as we already briefly studied. In this way, you should maintain mindfulness of your practice. In other words, remember your practice and use that introspection to see whether you are remembering, your mindfulness is remembering that practice or not, whether the mindfulness is slipping away from the door of the mind or not. The introspection should, like a watchman, guard it. And then after that, through heedfulness or carefulness, you should engage in accumulating or doing the positive practices. So this kind of practices you should do not only in the day, but also in the night. So there is the meaning that repeatedly examine your mind 3 times a day and 3 times a night. And as I have explained a little bit earlier, that in the case of food for the body, we need to eat many times in a day. And in some cases, maybe in the night also. So the spiritual practices are food for the mind. So it is not enough just to do one practice. It has to be done repeatedly. And especially, as I said earlier, much of the problem that we are seeing today in the world is a clear indication of spiritual or mental poverty, right? Deprivation. So therefore it is important, extremely important, to feed positive qualities to the mind and not to feed the negative qualities to the mind. So therefore, if you read texts like Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avtara, Shantideva, while teaching about how to counter negative emotions like anger, he says, starve the anger. Starve the anger. Don't give food to the anger. And what is the food to the anger? The food to the anger is unhappiness of mind. When your mind is unhappy, then you get angry. So that is the food for anger. So don't give food to anger. Starve it, and then anger will vanish or cease. So contrarily, in the case of positive qualities, we must feed the mind with positive practices like love, compassion, and so forth. And that makes total sense, perfect sense, because now it is scientifically proved that many of these positive practices like development of loving kindness, compassion, so forth, boosts your immune system, and also boosts your brain and other parts of your body. It's scientifically now proved, not just being taught in Buddhism. So in short, he tells Domtomba that do not always just go for the so-called profound teachings one after another without personally doing any practice. All the so-called profound practices can be included only in the two practices. That is the development of the method, which means loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom. So these two twin practices, method and wisdom, are like the two wings of the bird, through whose practice you can soar and fly high into the space of enlightenment. So therefore, and apart from that, if you don't study, don't practice, and let your mind infested with doubt and suspicion, then he says, then Atisha says, then it is like a person who's trying to stitch the cloth with a needle with 2 points. So you will not get anything. So therefore, with one pointed, without doubt means with one pointed understanding and one pointed meditation, you should persistently make effort to do the practice by discarding all the obstructions like sleep, torpor, laziness, and so forth. And then equipping yourself with the supporting practices like mindfulness, introspection, heedfulness. In this way, you should practice 6 times in a day, which means 3 times in a night, 3 times in a day, which is very, very important. Then another reason why we should practice repeatedly is that our mind is very strongly habituated with negative emotions, and it's not habituated with the positive emotions. And this is something that you can find it for yourself. But if you ask the question why this is so, because of certain biological reasons, right? Biologically, we need to defend ourselves, as the scientists say, fight and flight response. That is primarily to protect your psychophysical body, especially your psychophysical aggregate, your body. And for that, you need to sometimes fight if you are unable to, you have to run away if you're unable to fight, or if you're able to fight with somebody. So in this way, you develop this attachment, anger, hatred, just to basically, just like almost like a tree, you're trying to protect yourself to just survive. But now it looks like that the scientists and the other findings are also pointing, but this does not mean to say that you cannot develop higher mentally, provided if you use this mental capacity and train it, then you can develop your mind to limitless quality. And this is something not only the Buddha said, but even great scientists like Einstein and many others said that if you make an effort, you can even develop the brain to almost like a limitless state. So therefore, it is important to make sustained practice. And so in this practice, what is really important is do not get stuck with clinging to oneself. I mean, this is very, very important. Most of the mistakes that we make in our life, including development of negative emotions, is this clinging to oneself, clinging to what belongs to oneself, I, me, and mine, as we say. Now, scientifically, they found that this repeated self-references, I, me, and mine, are very bad for one's health also. And this is exactly what has been highlighted in many Buddhist texts, especially in the beginning of Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti. He, clearly mentions this, that it's because of this clinging and grasping to I, me, and mine that you end up committing all negative deeds. So therefore, in order to reduce this clinging to oneself, one way is to remember your Lama, in this case, Atisha advises Domdamba to visualize him because he's Domdamba's teacher, and that also not not as big as Atisha himself, but in a miniature form. In the heart of that, you visualize the Buddha, and in the heart of the Buddha, then you visualize the Tara, and in her heart visualize Avalokiteshvara. In her heart, in the heart of Avalokiteshvara, visualize that Achala. So the four deities that we already discussed. So in this way, you visualize all these five kind of deities and Lama together. So that is how you relate to your teacher also. And then the text also suggests that it is not like receiving some tantric teaching during whose visualization you imagine yourself being transformed into a deity, then suddenly you come back to your ordinary form. He says, as much as possible, you can imagine that the Lama is there with you, the Buddhas and these four deities are there with you as much as possible. So this will help you, give you that, get that blessing and that inspiration continuously. And so there are a lot of explanation on that. I'm not going to go into detail. And when you do these visualizations, it is important to visualize the forms of these deities in a miniature or in a small form so that you are able to focus on it. And so this is how he's also teaching the kind of meditation. In the meditation also, if you choose the object as the Buddha, then normally you're asked to imagine that Buddha as of small size, but with weight, not very light like a feather, which can be blown easily by a wind, not like that, so that your mind will able to focus on that, and then that imagine that deity or that image radiating with the light, so which will also help you remove your mental dullness and laziness and things like that. So he's again, I think, saying more or less the same thing. Now here, in order to do these practices successfully, what is important is to restrain the senses. That is what he's pointing out. Restrain the senses. Always guard the doors of the senses. I mean, look at this word. He says, always guard the senses. He didn't say that guard the senses when you go to the market or when you're doing the practice. Always guard the senses. And you will find many teachings in teachings of the Buddha and other teachers, they always say, especially in the teaching of the Buddha, if you read, the Buddha repeatedly says, the senses are on fire. The senses are on fire. And because of this, your senses, letting run wild, because of this, you get all these problems. And these senses are termed as the five doors. Five senses are termed as five doors. So it is through these doors, the mind runs away when it sees a beautiful object. It gets obsessed with it. When it hears a sound, it gets obsessed with it. As I explained earlier, this is how the big malls are springing up, because they know your weakness of your five senses. So in order to entertain each of these senses, there is a floor, which is for odor, which is for television for form, and then cloth for touch, and the restaurants for taste. They're all there. Then CDs, DVDs, containing musics of all countries. When I first, after reading Abhidharma, this teaching in the Abhidharma, then after visiting a mall, I was kind of completely struck how true those teachings are, right? So therefore, number one, our senses are running wild. And then secondly, today's, mad rush for material consumption, and the business people, they want to promote their product. So again, there is a line of teaching in Abhidharma where it says the objects are nearby, in a mall or wherever, the objects are nearby. And inside you have this improper mental attitude, which is of negative emotions, ready to run wild when you see this or when you encounter these objects. So negative emotions will easily arise. So that's why the environment itself is so conducive for developing these negative emotions. So therefore, unless we put some restraint, some guard to ourselves, not only we will not develop these negative emotions, but even in terms of our, material success, in terms of our well-being also, it is not good, as we are seeing today. The world is in today's, consumeristic world, how much problem we are having. So I was reading this article, which is titled as the disease of more. We are suffering from this disease of more. And success is often the first step towards disaster. The so-called success that we ordinarily talk about in the material world is the first step toward disaster, which I fully agree. And the idea of progress is often the enemy of actual progress. What do you mean by progress? The other day I mentioned, the purpose of education is not just reading, writing, and mathematics, but the purpose of education is for real progress, for human flourishment. And just by developing these material facilities and letting the market flood with all these shiny gadgets and so forth, we cannot call it progress in the true sense of the term. Because, when the consumer, the people, they themselves, their mind is full of hatred, full of depression, full of unhappiness. How can you say that there is progress? Progress is something that has to be measured in terms of the person's attitude, person's way of life, and so forth. So therefore, we cannot call it progress. And he says, very interestingly, he says, the problem is we are never satisfied with our achievement. Okay, we always long to achieve something which we call as the next level. And next level is the elusive next level. Nobody is sure what they are pursuing, but running and running. Many of us have, for example, have spent time to reach, for example, the skill of writing and so forth for 10, 20 years. And finally, we are a good writer. Now you should settle down. You can, of course, make some, I'm especially talking about the external progress. Okay, internal progress, maybe there's no limit. So in the case of, external development and progress and material, acquirement, there should be some kind of contentment. Otherwise, many people, they study for 10, 20 years, achieve certain proficiency, then not satisfied with that, they go for something, and then they're unable to use that proficiency that they have achieved after working so hard for 10, 20 years, and then go for the next one. Then go for the next one, which is unfortunately not healthy for us, right? So striving to reach the next level can actually prevent us from appreciating where we are now. So the problem is because we have this tendency of thinking never enough. Whatever you have, never enough. You want more, you want more. You're always hungry. Even on your deathbed, you're hungry, unfortunately. Even when we are dying or we are getting very old, still we are not able to part many things that we should part and get ready to go and give it to others, right? So this famous phrase, disease of more, comes from this famous concept comes from sport. In the sport, they said in the initial stage, the team who wins the championship are often ultimately dethroned, not by other better teams, but by forces from within the organization itself. That means in the initial stage, when you're not a champion, you all work together as a team with high team spirit, work very closely, and then you become champion. And after you reach that level, get more money, then you have so many other things that comes in your way, then you're not able to focus, and then you will be the loser next time. So that's the thing. So there are many things that is, and then he suggests that, as His Holiness always says, as the Madhyamika text says, middle way. So here also he says middle ground. Because this psychologist, he did a test, to find out They took large groups of people and give them pagers. And this was in 80s and 90s. And whenever the pager went off, each person was to stop and write down two things. One, on a scale from 1 to 10, how happy are you at this moment? Second, what has been going on in your life to cause these feelings? These two questions were asked, and then people, generally speaking, people chose the middle ground. Pretty much everybody wrote 7 out of 10, 7, almost everybody. Normally when you're not so sure, you write, not so low, not so high, like 6, 7. So most of them wrote 7 all the time, no matter whatever, in tragedy, in happiness, So what he's saying is, life is neither full of suffering from that point of view, not full of happiness. Sometimes you suffer, but you tend to come back to that level of happiness. Sometimes you experience great happiness by winning a great lottery, but again, that excitement, that happiness stays for a few days and then come back, you see. So therefore we need to recognize, so what he's saying is we need to recognize this capacity to remain stable or choose the middle ground, provided if we understand this. And he says nobody is happy all the time, okay? And similarly, nobody is fully unhappy all the time either, right? So I don't need to read everything. So what we are basically saying here is the Buddhist practitioners are longing to achieve nirvana or enlightenment, which is nothing but other name for happiness, highest form of happiness. So if you want to achieve that highest form of happiness, that happiness will come through cultivation of inner qualities and not by accumulating external material things. I'm not saying you don't need these material facilities. Yes, to the limited extent, but don't think they are the source of your long-lasting happiness. That's very, very important. And it is because of this, the cause for happiness is said to be meditation. That's what the Buddha taught. Now this word meditation is used so much today, almost, overused word almost, and everybody is teaching meditation in different forms, right? But if you look at the original meaning of the word meditation, which the Buddha taught, it was the Hindi or Sanskrit word was bhavana, which can be translated as cultivation. And Buddha took this idea from, I think, farming, from the farmers. He took many ideas from farming. Like, for example, it looks like this notion of samsara or cycle of existence. Also, I think a notion probably he took. Then, of course, later on, he went to a deeper level of meaning. But initially, it looks like he took this idea from, farming. If you look at the farmers, they have to undergo this, repeated cycle of suffering, meaning that this year you plant certain crops, and sometimes you are successful, you have a bountiful crop, sometimes you don't succeed, it's destroyed by rain and famine, you suffer so much. Then again, next year also you repeat the same cycle. Again, you have to go to the field and farm and cultivate, and then the next year also same. So Buddha, even at a very young age, he saw this cycle, and then he started thinking, how can't we stop this cycle? And then he went, of course, taking this example, he went more to the, psychological cycle that is happening within oneself, rooted in one's negative ways of thinking and like that. So therefore, at this point in this text, he also talks about the practice of the trivial links of dependent origination, bhava chakra. Okay, so therefore, the meditation basically means bhavana or cultivation. Now, in the case of farming, you need to first of all level the ground, remove all the hurdles which will obstruct the proper growth of that seed, that plant, level it. So similarly, in the case of spiritual practice also, you have to level the mind. The mind, first you need to develop this mind of equanimity. And once you have leveled the ground, then if you moisten it with, as I said, the moisten with the level it with equanimity, moisten it with compassion, and then moisten it with loving kindness, and then plant the seed of compassion, then bodhicitta will grow. That's one way of putting things. Or the other way of putting it is just level the ground, means make your mind free from attachment, anger, jealousy, hatred. Maintain that Shitalta comes from the Hindi word, or Sanskrit word Shidalta or Shil, which means cool. It's only when your mind is cool and calm, then you can develop all other qualities. Again, the same thing, just as if you prepare and level the ground properly, then you can grow all kind of plants and crops. So similarly, when it comes to developing these inner qualities, you need to follow the process, which is really similar like cultivating a farm, which is also not easy. Cultivating a farm is also not easy. You need to have all the needed equipments, you need to have strength. So similarly in the spiritual practices also, it's not easy. We are not saying it is easy, but that is the process. But then the good news is that in the case of the development of the mind, if you nurture it systematically, repeatedly practice, you can develop it. And this is something that I am really convinced now. If you practice it, you can achieve something. But the problem is we are like monkey, touching on so many things, so many teachings, so many qualities, and not becoming kind of efficient or good even in one practice, like compassion. As I said the other day, imagine if you really have genuine compassion, you will be completely, thoroughly transformed. And not only you will be thoroughly transformed, but because of this transformation, you can easily develop many other qualities. So all this clearly show that we are not doing rigorously and sincerely, practicing, even developing even one quality. That is the problem. That's the problem. So we need to make effort, at least in one thing, be it in giving, be it in morality, be it in compassion, whatever. Not necessarily you become Buddha and Bodhisattvas quickly, but at least if you develop really solid, spiritual development in that one area, you will become completely different person. That's, I think, very, very important. Okay, so therefore, so the main point that we are talking about is restraining your senses. Restraining your senses. Okay, restrain your senses. Restrain your senses. Restraining your senses is also a precursor to your meditation. Because if you read the process of doing meditation, then first of all the scriptures and teachers, they'll tell you, restrain your senses. Don't sleep too much. Don't overeat. Don't eat too little. So many things are there. So restraining senses is the key thing. So don't let your senses run wild. If you restrain your senses, you will start enjoying that peace, that happiness, and so forth. So that is extremely, extremely important. Okay. Especially, I'm telling you, especially in today's world, when there's so many attractions, just step out and you will see so many things. And especially these days, my own personal experience is this online business, so easy to order so many seemingly attractive, useful, beautiful things, that everything that you want, it will be at your door. I mean, so you unless you think properly, you can easily become a victim to all this. So I'm not saying, these are totally useless or anything like that. I'm not trying to turn the clock back. But unless you maintain some restraint, unless you maintain some contentment, then there will never be a time when you can say, I'm okay. Okay, so time is up or something? Nordila is touching her head a few times. Anyway, time is up?
Yet. Kishla, not yet. You still
Not yet? Okay. Okay, so anyway, so this completes the fifth chapter, which is restraining the senses primarily and taking care of your mind. As we normally say, by take care, which means by take care of your mind. whether you like it or not, unless you take care of yourself, unless you take care of your mind, nobody can take care of that. And taking care of your mind basically means not imprisoning it somewhere, but it means to feed the mind with positive qualities, positive practices, and develop the right perspective. The developing right perspective is, when I say develop the right perspective, I'm not saying develop the perspective taught by the Buddha or anybody. Of course, as a Buddhist, we do that. But generally what I'm saying, even the Buddha, what he is saying is develop the right perspective means see things as they are. You call it shunyata, you call it impermanence, you call it suffering. All these are undeniable, natural realities. You cannot say things will never change, they will change. And the change is so quick. Change is so quick, as the Buddha said, that you cannot step into the same river twice. This is a wonderful example. Like if you put your feet in the river, running river, then you take your foot out, that water is gone. And next time you will say, I am going to the same river, but it's not the same river. It's already gone. So in this way, the fluctuation is so much in flux that we don't even notice it. Number one, we don't notice because we don't sit down and think. For a time, for a while, forget about meditation on selflessness, but even if you think about impermanence, start from that. Start from that, impermanence, suffering, and so forth. Then gradually go to the triple level, and finally to shunyata and selflessness and things like that. So if you think about impermanence, everything is in a flux. There's hardly anything that, everything is so elusive, there's hardly anything to hold on to. But when we don't have that insight, that capacity to see the reality, then we see everything as before. They are not changing. I'm not aging. I'm the same person. I'm not getting old. Even if you are, already like 50, 60, still you think I'm the same person. That's the problem. And therefore the great teachers, they say that everybody knows one day I'm going to die. The problem is everybody thinks today I'm not going to die. That's the problem. That this shows this strong grasping to permanence. Today I'm not going to. Next day comes. Today I'm not going. So that's called grasping. As you age, you should really try to develop some of these insights and reduce that grasping to oneself. The more you develop this grasping of seeing yourself as permanent, as having inherent existence, the more you grasp onto yourself, the more you become rigid. And all these fightings that we see, all this fundamentalism, nationalism that we see in the world is because of this grasping to oneself and what belongs to oneself. My religion is best, my family is best. Of course, I am the best of all. I am the center of the universe. That's the problem. But if you relax this hold onto oneself a little bit, as His Holiness says, you will really feel as if you're completely like released from a big bondage. Then you can really, truly, you can breathe. Right? I mean, I'm unable to express it. These are so profound. I'm unable to express it. Because the more you see the universality of everything, the universal nature of impermanence, suffering, emptiness and so on, the more you see to this fundamental reality and nature of things, the more you will see yourself closely related to others. And you will not hardly see any difference. These so-called differences are just designations, just names. And especially the big demarcations are made by calling oneself I. You already say when I, this is me, I, and this is she or him or her, you already made this boundary. And in many cases, unbreachable boundary. From there arises all this unfortunate things that we are seeing in today's world in individual, person's life also. So therefore, really, these are like amazing, amazing teachings. And Buddha is somebody who never said that this is a teaching that I'm so clever, I found it through my meditation, I'm giving it to you. He simply said, I saw this in the nature. I saw this impermanent nature carved in the rocks, in the trees, in the rivers, in human beings, in animals, impermanence. It's all there. The only thing is we are so, our life, we lead such a rushed life, we don't have time to see these realities. And especially in today's world, everybody is rushed. Everybody says, I'm busy for what? I don't know. That's the problem. You see, that's why slow down. That's why the Buddha repeatedly told Angulimala, who was chasing him, he said, slow down. It's not me who is running, it's you who are running and not reaching anywhere. So many times your desired goal will be achieved not just by running, but by stopping. And especially stopping and reflecting within oneself, the miracle is there. The key that opens all the door is there. But unfortunately, we are so carried away by what is visible that we have no time and no interest to look at this invisible thing. That's the only problem. Right? That's all is. 5 minutes more, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the next chapter is chapter number 6, which is a chapter which says, all blame goes to one, which I've already explained. All blame goes to one. So therefore, in this, the verses that come under this says, declare your faults. Do not find others' faults or mistakes. Conceal your qualities. Reveal those of the others. Look, this is again contrary to how we live. In our case, we want to declare others' fault, not oneself. I'm perfect. If anybody points their finger against me saying that I did this and that wrong, I will just burst out. So if you really want to improve, he says, declare your faults without having the police and others, pushing you to declare your fault. just like if you declare your income tax, it's better, declare it before the income tax officers harass you. So like that, declare your faults. Because for a spiritual practitioner, your focus is, your thrust is, your object of concentration is how to remove your faults. So you declare it. Yes, I have this weakness, I have this fault, I must rectify, I must change. Please help me. Request your teacher, you request your friends, please help me. People will know that this is your fault, they will help you. Declare your faults. Do not find others' mistakes. And especially in our ordinary case, when we highlight the faults of others, we are not doing that with loving kindness and compassion. We are doing that just to bring that person down. We are doing that because you don't like that person. You're doing this because that other person, the way that other person behave towards you, look like that other person doesn't like me. Therefore, I should also highlight his fault, tit for tat. And then at the end, both the side highlighting each other's fault, what we'll get. We all know this so well. So therefore, he's saying, do not find others' mistakes. Conceal your qualities. I already mentioned, conceal your qualities. The great teachers, they conceal their qualities. And in the Buddhist text, they say they will conceal or hide their qualities, just like a burning butter lamp inside a pumbaa or pot, vase, pot. Inside is full of light, but it's not visible to others because they don't want to make a big declaration or announcement of how great they are, how enlightened they are, right? And reveal those of others, because you are practicing the Buddha's teaching, especially if you are practicing the Bodhisattva way of life. then your focus, your thrust, your focus is for the well-being of others, not yourself. So therefore, reveal those of others, just like the parents do to their kids. When their kids or when their children, achieve some success in their school and things like that, parents just keep on bragging about that. My child did this, my son did this, my daughter did this, she is now going engineering, this, that, because there's love. So similarly, in the true spirit of the Bodhisattva practice, if you love others, then highlight their good qualities. Just encourage them further. Wow, wonderful! You did so wonderful. Go ahead. I can support you, instead of developing jealousy. But as I said, unfortunately, in our case, we have this tinge of jealousy all the time. So even if somebody is praising someone else, instead of joining and appreciating that, we might say, yeah, that may be true, but meaning that he has many other bad things I want to highlight. He's not perfect gentleman. So this is our tendency, unfortunately. Okay. Give up wealth and respect, and forever give up arrogance and fame. Have less desire and be content, and repay deeds of kindness. I think so. So we stop here now, maybe.
Yes, oh, Geshe Lhakdor, thank you so much. So we'll take up some questions now. And I see Amita has asked a question. And those of you, you know how to ask questions. You just have to raise your hand from the participants icon. So I'll read out Amita's question. Geshe-la, she or he is asking, what is a fine balance between need and greed?
Need and greed. That is quite obvious. That if you try to get more than what you need, that is greed. As Mahatma Gandhi said, there is enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. So greed means basically, for example, a very good example is like, normally if your hunger is removed by eating 3 chapatis, then that is need. But that chapati is tasty, and if you eat 6 chapatis, that is out of greed. So consuming or enjoying more than what you need, more than the necessity, I think is greed. Yeah.
So next we have Jackie.
Hello. Earlier when you talked about how striving is not good, when you were talking about material things, can that also be applied to your practice of the Dharma? Sometimes I worry that I take my Dharma practice like I do a job and I try too hard. Is there a fine line that you should not try and strive, or I don't quite know how much to strive and how much?
Yeah. As I have explained earlier, while explaining the meaning of effort, perseverance, there I explained that making effort is really delighting in what you do. So that is the key thing. In our ordinary work, even if you, let us say, a professional nurse, then professionally you are equipped with all the needed skills of looking after the sick person, things like that. You work very hard, so that is kind of professionalism, but not necessarily you are enjoying that, because you are trained in that, you are taught that, and you are getting salary for that. So therefore you work very hard, sometimes even cross the boundary and pushing yourself. That's why many nurses and doctors are today suffering from compassion fatigue or emotional fatigue, you see. So therefore what is important is delighting in what you do. I'm lucky, I'm able to do this, wonderful, it's so good. So with that kind of joy, with that kind of delight, whatever you do, it's like almost like playing a football, So when you like something, you don't feel tired. It's very easy. But again, that does not mean you will never get tired, because we are also ordinary people. So therefore, again, in the text, in the teachings, it says that you should also know when to stop. When to stop. if you are feeling tired physically, you have this ordinary body, so therefore it will naturally get tired. So therefore, stop, take rest, energize yourself with food, exercise, and things like that, and then again practice. It's important to maintain balance. Yeah.
So, Geshe, thank you. I don't see any raised hands right now. So while we wait for some more questions, I'll just announce our upcoming program. We have His Holiness's virtual talk on October 26th, and we did send out an announcement through email, and we were wondering if you received that, and your yes or no answer in the chat group would really help. Thank you so much. Now I see 2 raised hands, and I'm going to call up Natasha. Natasha, please. Natasha.
Yes, I'm sorry. Geshe, I have a question from one of our listeners from YouTube. He is asking, what would you say about the usurers, right? The money lenders, those who lend money for some interest. What's your attitude towards this practice? Thank you.
Now, this is like any other business, because you know, you have to survive. Therefore, you do all kinds of business, not just lending money. So if you do it according to the law of the country, not trying to cheat people, then I think it's okay, or it is tolerable. But if you do it against the standard, you know, practices or law of that country, then I think again it is wrong. So it depends on the context and the situation. Okay.
Joya. Hello, has Joya received the unmute request?
Yes, I think she did, but I think she just lowered her hand.
Oh, okay, that's all right. Okay. So maybe, Geshe, we are all stopping to think and reflect. And with that, we will just end the session today. And thank you so much, Geshe, and we cannot count our blessings. Really, it's just, we're just so
Thank you.
profoundly blessed. Thank you so much. And see you all next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.